Shalom, Kal Halayim La Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Bracha HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of GMS who rule well, who I learned this truth from, and salutations and blessings to you elect, starting with the 144,000. So this lesson is gonna be touching on rooting, right? Being rooted in the truth, right? That's a very that would be the most fundamental part of this truth, right? When you come into this truth, it's exciting. You know, the word tastes like honey, sweet, right? But you need some roots to deal with that bitterness when it reaches your stomach, right? And just a side note, there's that one of my favorite movies, The Revenant, with Leonardo DiCaprio, right? In that movie, I believe in the beginning of it, I tried to find the scene, but I couldn't find it online on YouTube to play it. But if you watch that movie, in the beginning, I think in the beginning, there's a scene where, you know, they show high winds, right? And pretty much when they show that part, there's a Gadai woman speaking, and what she's saying is pretty much that when the wind blows, right, when the wind is very high and it blows, it seems like the trees, you know, it looks like the tree is gonna be uprooted pretty much. You know, that the tree is gonna fall. You know, but pretty much in you know what she said. I forget. I haven't watched it in a long time, so I forget the exact thing. But the point was, she was saying the roots. You know, it's pretty much about the roots that keep that tree stable, right? And that's a good point. You know, this is from a website, Clear Space Studios. When the wind is blowing, the roots go deeper. All right, I'll just read this. It says, when the wind is blowing, the roots go down deeper. This was said to me recently by Catherine as I faced a challenge. Let me go down here. So it says, in the biosphere too, they had trees growing faster than they would grow in the wild. Also, they found that these trees wouldn't completely mature. Before they could, they used to collapse. Later it was found that this was caused by the lack of wind in the biosphere. And it turns out wind plays a major role in a tree's life. The presence of wind makes a tree stronger, if it is thus able to mature and not fall down due to its own weight. When plants and trees grow in the wild, the wind constantly keeps them moving. This causes a stress in the wooden load-bearing structure of the tree. So, to compensate, the tree manages to grow something called the reaction wood or stress wood. This stress wood usually has a different structure in terms of cellulose or linen content and more, and is able to position the tree where it'd get the best light or other optimum resources. This is the reason why trees are able to contort towards best light, meaning to move. So that some trees, they twist, right? Because the tree's alive, and still survive loads even in awkward shapes. A contorted building like that would easily fall. The tree is able to grow in a more solid manner thanks to the reaction wood. You know, and what I take away from this is certain stress is good, just like in your life, in everyone's life, in my life. You have good stresses, right? You have experiences that you have to go through, and especially in this truth, you have to go through them because they mend you. They change you for the better. They mortify your members. They purify you. They purge you, right? And you become stronger. You become more rooted in Yahushai, in Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So you need those stress responses. Just like when brothers go to the gym. What do you think causes your muscles to grow, right? The main thing is recovery. That's when muscle is growing, but there has to be a stress response. There has to be a signal. There has to be what Esau calls a catabolic response, which is a breaking down. You have to tear and rip and break down, right? That's why you're sore for 2-3 days sometimes if you hit it right, and then you grow back stronger. You must go through that. So same thing with life, and especially with this truth, with this ministry. You have to go. The winds are going to come. Right? The winds are going to come, man. If there's no wind, like in the biosphere too, the trees end up being much weaker and aren't able to survive for long. This happens in homes too. Plants grown indoors without any kind of wind hitting them on a regular basis tend to become weak. Right? You become overspoiled, man. So before they are planted outside in the wild conditions, their structure has to be strengthened by causing stress. Remember, stress is what makes trees strong enough to sustain the wear and tear that it'd face later in life, right? And the thing is also something I know about herbs, right? Some of the best herbs, right? Whether it's leaves, a branch, or root that you use from that herb, or berry, whatever it is. The more it's out in the wild and pretty much in destitute situations, like for example, some of the best frankincense, right? In Latin, frankincense is Boswellia, but you have different characteristics. You have Boswellia carteri. You have the finest frankincense, which is Boswellia sacra, which is Latin for sacred, holy. That frankincense is actually medicinal. Right, and that frankincense in color, it's actually green, right? And in a dark setting, it kind of glows. It's green. It's very expensive. But when you look at the trees, the branches, and from whence the resin comes from, the shrub, pretty much, that plant, the Boswellia, sometimes it's growing on a ditch. It's growing on a cliff, at the end of the cliff, with half the branches off, half the branches in the clay. You know, the more the plant has to work to go, you have to understand the plants get, the rain, the water, but they also get the minerals from the earth, and then they change it so it becomes bioavailable for us. Any herb, dandelion, nettle, right, burdock, whatever kind of roots and herbs you use, the more it has to go deep in the earth to get those minerals, the stronger the roots become, because the roots have to dig down, and the more medicinal that plant pretty much becomes, because it has to fight. It becomes strong, and this speaks volumes to the ministry. Let's go into the scriptures. Let's go to the book of Matthew 13 and 18 in the NLT. Right? It says, "Now listen to the explanation of the parable about the farmer planting seeds. The seed that fell on the footpath represents those who hear the message about the kingdom and don't understand it. Then the evil one comes and snatches away the seed that was planted in their hearts or minds. The seed on the rocky soil represents those who hear the message and immediately receive it with joy. But since they don't have deep roots," see, I was just explaining, if a plant doesn't have deep roots and it's in a destitute situation, it will die off. But if a plant digs down and really sinks in and digs those roots into the earth and extracts what it needs and deals with the wind, that's a powerful plant. It's a very high vibrational medicinal plant, right? But verse 21, "But since they don't have deep roots, they don't last long. They fall away as soon as they have problems or are persecuted for believing the Most High's word. The seed that fell among the thorns represents those who hear the Most High's word, but all too quickly the message is crowded out by the worries of this life and the lure of wealth, so no fruit is produced. The seed that fell on good soil represents those who truly hear and understand the Most High's word and produce a harvest of 30, 60, or even 100 times as much as had been planted," aka a very beneficial medicinal plant, right? Notice it says, who truly hear and understand the Most High's word. A lot of people, they hear the word, but they don't truly hear. They don't really know. They get lost in the excitement of it, the feeling that it gives them. As I said before, right? The scriptures say about sweet, this word being sweet in your mouth as honey, but bitter in your stomach. When you start to fully digest and understand what this ministry is about, right? The people get lost. A lot of people get lost in the excitement and dopamine, dopamine hit, and the good news, the gospel, right? But they don't fully understand. Now let's go to another scripture. Matthew 7:24. Let's go to NLT. Anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Though the rain, it said, though the rain comes in torrents and the floodwaters rise and the winds beat against that house, it won't collapse because it is built on bedrock, right? But anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish, like a person who builds a house on sand. When the rains and floods come and the winds beat against that house, it will collapse with a mighty crash. Let me actually look up this word just for interest's sake. Anemos.
Strong's G417. Animos,
which means wind, a violent agitation and stream of air, a very strong tempestuous wind. Okay, but I like this part. It said the violent agitation. Hey, agitations. You're going to be agitated in this truth down to your core, man, down to your soul, down to your cells. You know, things are going to irk you and make you mad because you're being purified. You're being mortified. Your members are being mortified, right? You're seeing the world for what it is. Nothing but filth, degeneracy, lies, right? You're seeing what's really real, you know, and you at the same time, as a potential hopeful elect, you are being changed. Your ways are being mended, just like the tree has to bend and contort. That shit hurts, man. That shit hurts. That trunk has to bend and contort for that light. You got to go where that light is. You got to follow. Yahushua said, follow me whithersoever I go. My sheep hear my voice and follow me whithersoever I go. A lot of those places whithersoever is unpleasant places, man. It's very stressful places. But it's places that will help you grow. Right? Now let's go to the book of Colossians. I believe that was 2. Yeah, 2. Colossians 2:6. It says in the NLT, and now, just as you accepted Mashiach Yahushua as your Lord, you must continue to follow him. Let your roots grow down into him, and let your lives be built on him. Right? Then your faith will grow strong in the truth you were taught, and you will overflow with thankfulness. Don't let anyone capture you with empty philosophies and high-sounding nonsense that comes from human thinking and from the spiritual powers of this world, rather than from Mashiach Yahushua. Right? And there's a lot of high-sounding nonsense. What does that mean, high-sounding? It sounds good. It's high-sounding. It's a high pitch. People are screaming it, promoting it, getting damn near high off it. You know, like it's God sent, but it's nonsense. It's from human thinking and from the spiritual powers of this world. Who are the spiritual powers of this world? Satan. The adversary, Shaitan. Right? Let me get this other scripture. Book of Proverbs 12:3. A man shall not be established by wickedness, but the root of the righteous shall not be moved. In the NLT, wickedness never brings stability, but the godly have deep roots. See, one of the most important things, for example, in martial arts, from my experience in Kung Fu, for example, is a concept of rooting, grounding, right? Or sometimes called sinking force. That's one of the first things a real martial artist has to learn how to generate that power, how to have stability, how to generate power from the earth, transfer it up, right? Like a boxer, they'll tell you, right? It all starts with your feet, goes to your knees, to your hips, right? Up your spine to your shoulder, right? All the way down to your elbow, to your fist. That power, that kinetic chain, as they call it. But in martial arts, traditional martial arts, it's called grounding or sinking force. Sinking, like you're sinking into the floor. You know, like you have deep roots into the floor. You know, and that provides, again, stability. That provides you the understanding of how to generate force, etc. So same thing in this truth. You need that sinking, that understanding of sinking and rooting, grounding, being grounded in general, not being too high up and fantasizing about stuff. And you know, there's a lot of Israelites that you know, you can tell they're like that, man. They're talking about this truth, and they haven't really gone through a lot. You know, they haven't really been tested. And they speak a lot about scriptures that they seem to think they understand, but they really don't. They got to be grounded. You really just get, like they say, get back down to earth. We're not in the kingdom. We're not even close in that situation. We're close to the kingdom, but we're not anywhere near a situation of the kingdom. All right, anyway, I hope you're edified with that. I don't want to keep on talking. Again, the main point of this lesson is grounding, rooting, being rooted in Yahushua, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Kal halal yam la Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, Bashem Racha HaKodash. Shalom.